Hey guys, it's Mike here, and a little while back on my channel, I discussed the topic of what effect did King Cold have on Cell, and discussing how that and some of the other components that were comprising the form of Cell ended up affecting him in different ways. In this video, I'm going to be focusing on two other characters that made up Cell, the two of them who would end up leading Cell to his perfect form by absorbing them. Those were Android 17 and 18. And what effect did the two of them have on the whole that was perfect Cell, not only in terms of physicality, but also in terms of his mind? Well, let's get into that right now as I bring up the manga, and we're going to go really in depth. But before I begin, if you guys like the video, make sure to leave a like and comment your own thoughts down below so that this video will be seen by even more people, and then in turn I'll be able to make even more videos like that. So let's get into this video right now. So what effect did these two androids here actually have on Cell? Because as we know, when Cell first debuted in the story, he was very different from what he would become as his perfect form. And not just because of editorial tampering, as many people like to say with this arc, which I actually feel like ends up making a lot of it better. But Cell transformed a lot, not just in appearance over time, when he absorbed those two androids. And as he explained when he first showed up, he actually required the two of them in order to become fully complete, as he mentioned right here. It wasn't enough for him to absorb humans or Piccolo or anyone else. He needed to merge with these two especially powerful life forms that the computer instructed, which were Dr. Giro's other creations that came before Cell, 17 and 18. And somehow Dr. Giro had designed Cell in order to devour these two androids and assimilate them into himself. I assume that this came because Dr. Giro, he's always playing fourth dimensional chess. He might have thought, well, one thing that could happen is that 17 and 18 will turn against me at some point, or they'll be too hard to control, so I'll create Cell in order to absorb them after their mission is complete, especially if, they end up killing me, which they ended up doing for sure. And then he explained exactly why he went back in time and why he needed them, and how basically after absorbing them, they would be able to give him power that would be unimaginable upon becoming his complete form. So, of course, what ends up happening when he goes to absorb one of the androids? Well, the first one that he absorbs is Android 17. And we see this happen right after the fight between 17 and Piccolo, where Cell was intelligent enough to wait for them to kind of weaken each other down before he went in there and kind of picked the bones. Not to mention he was already way more powerful than either of them, but, 16 was kind of getting in the way of that. However, Cell did absorb 17, and we saw his first transformation go underway, in which he became semi-perfect Cell. I usually pronounce it semi, but for some reason I said semi, like a semi-truck. Rip that truck driver that Vegeta blasted. Anyway, when we actually see that Cell transformed, look at the stark contrast between this form that we see right here, as I zoom back out, and the initial form. Sure, he still maintains some aspects like his tail, like his, I guess you could say, crown, because he's the king of villains in this franchise, and, his spots that Toriyama hated to draw. But nonetheless, what ended up happening is he became a lot more masculine, a lot more human looking in terms of his physique and structure, and far more muscular, even larger than the already massive Android 16 that, Harold really loves because he's based on Arnold Schwarzenegger. And as we can see, it is a question of, is it because he absorbed the male 17 first that he became this more masculine, male-looking character, as opposed to being this weird bug creature right here? And as a result, the question always arises by so many fans, what would have actually changed if Cell had absorbed 18 first? Would he become a more feminine-looking character? I mean, we've seen some of the feminine stands in JoJo, for example, so maybe he would look something like that, or something like some weird fan art that you could see on certain websites online that you probably don't want to have on your browser history. But nonetheless, what ended up happening is he increased significantly in power and speed. And he even mentions right here, frankly, I'm surprised at my own speed, a gift from that cyborg, with that being a reference to Android 17. And of course, he also increased in power significantly to where he could easily wreck 16, who he was already equivalent to before that, and might have even lost to because 16, for all we know, had perpetual energy as well, despite being fully mechanical. And so here's an interesting thing right here, where Cell, when he sees that 18's about to blow herself up, what does he say? Can you hear me? It's 17. It feels great being one with Cell. The power's mind-bending. Join us. Let Cell absorb you. We'll be the ultimate life form. So Cell is really channeling kind of the inspiration from Terminator that exists in this arc, where he's using the voice of 17 here, which 16 points out right here where he says, don't fall for it, 18. The thing's just using 17's voice. And, he ties back into the fact that 17 found out that 16 was fully mechanical earlier, and, a machine can't understand how we feel. Come on, 18. There's nothing to be afraid of. What could be wrong with having the ultimate power? We'll beat Son Goku just like Master Gero wanted, and then take over the world. But 18 sees through this, as she sees right here, and she says, you're not 17. We hated Gero for turning us into cyborgs. We'd never call him master. And, you could see that Cell is frustrated and disappointed that his ruse has been broken here on the right panel. And then he says, I'll just have to take you by force, which he inevitably does. But it does raise the question of, is this implying right here that Cell does not truly have any of the aspect of 17's personality and other aspects within him? Or perhaps is he just kind of hacking 17's memories here, as well as his voice, in order to trick 18, while Cell is still the dominant personality? Kind of like when Piccolo merged with Kami, he is still the dominant personality, whereas Kami is kind of like in the background, but still does have a little bit of influence on Piccolo, especially as we go on to see in the next arc and moving forward. And at this point, though, Cell does go and change again, as he absorbs 18 this time within him. And like I mentioned before with regard to Cell's body, we see all these different angles that Toriyama gives us of his new complete or perfect form, where you can see right in here that he's become a lot sleeker. Kind of like I mentioned before, when he absorbed Android 17, he became a lot more muscular and masculine looking. But now, after he absorbed the female 18, he becomes a lot sleeker, a lot more lean, a lot more perhaps feminine in a sense, comparative to the ultra-masculine looking Android 16 right here, and of course to the semi-perfect form of Cell. There I go, semi again, I don't know. But either way, the fact of the matter is that he changes physically, but we also start to see some other changes that would end up becoming a factor as well, or other things that could be indicating that Cell really did, in fact, take on a little bit more than it was implied earlier. Like, for example, we see that when Cell is fighting against Vegeta as his perfect form, Vegeta starts to realize that Cell is not even taking the fight seriously. He doesn't see Vegeta as a real threat, and rather a warm-up, because of the fact that, of course, Vegeta, prior was a bigger deal and not quite now. And, this kind of might tie into what we see, and I'll show you guys in a little bit, with regard to what we saw with future 17 and his fight with Gohan, where 17 was always holding back up until the very end. And then Vegeta gets really mad. He tells him to actually turn it on and fight him for real. Vegeta, he jumps and he kicks Cell as hard as he can at full power right in the head. And what do we see right here? Well, we see Cell gives this evil smile, this laugh, as you can see in my thumbnail right now. But what does this tie back to? Well, it ties back to, ironically, the future, or, the future of a different timeline, which is right here, the future Trunks timeline, where we saw that 17, 18 were destroying the city, and what ended up happening, I'll get back to that page momentarily. 17 gets attacked by Gohan. Gohan readies himself to fight, and he says right here, I've been training hard. You won't beat me this time. It's your turn to lose. But 17 kind of breaks that ego of Gohan on display, where he says, our turn. Sorry to disappoint. but I didn't even use half my power last time. Another thing I just mentioned, Cell holding back against Vegeta, as we see 17 holding back against Gohan until right now when he goes to kill him. And what do we see right here on the left-hand side? We see this evil-looking smile from 18. The same look that Vegeta is getting from Cell. Right here, right here. They're even mirrored in a sense to where 18 is leaning over to the left, her right, and Cell is leaning over to the right, his left. So again, was that intentional by Toriyama? Is this another time echo, as I mentioned in a video you could see in the top right corner? Or is this very clear that Cell took a little bit more from 17 and 18 than he initially anticipated? And let's take it even further than that, because after this, we end up seeing that Cell went on to defeat Vegeta and to fight against Torankusu when he was becoming his Super Saiyan Grade 3. I can't pronounce the Japanese version of it. The Daikaisen. Sure, why not? And basically what ended up happening was that, Trunks realized that he was defeated. He gave Cell the chance to kill him, and Cell says, maybe I will. But instead, he's standing right here with his hand pointed at Trunks, saying that he wished he could have had more fun. And here we go. One last question. You weren't in my league, but you and Vegeta did both improve dramatically in a short period of time. How did you do that? Trunks doesn't answer. Fine, so don't tell me. Try this question instead. Would you improve further if you had the time? Trunks is shocked here. Well, says Cell, how should I know? I won't know until I try, but why are you asking this, says Trunks. Cell responds next, so it's not impossible. My next question is, what's Son Goku doing? Why hasn't he shown up here yet? Goku's trying hard to defeat you, says Trunks. You'll meet him soon enough, and he'll do what I failed to do. And then Cell laughs. Good answer. And this is where he says, all right, I'll open a tournament, and proposes the Cell Games. And he even goes in depth and explains that he'll give him not only 10 days, but also that he actually understands and has knowledge of the martial arts tournament called Strongest Under the Heavens, the Tenkaichi Budokai, or of course the World's Martial Arts Tournament in the English dub. Now you have to wonder where Cell got this information. Was it the computer that told him, or did he get it from Android 17, who is pre-programmed with information from Goku and others? It's kind of a question there. But all of you will only have me to fight. We'll fight one-on-one, and if I win, we go to the next one. I don't care how many of you there are. The more the merrier, so you'd better start training, or you'd better start gathering allies. And, he goes and he says it's going to be a great way to pass the time, bring plenty of those sensu beans, and Trunks asks him, so, wait, what's the point of this tournament? What do you want, anyway? I don't understand it. Do you want to take over the Earth, the galaxy? And Cell responds, I want to confirm my superiority and spread some fear over this world. It'll be good practice, too. What do I want? Nothing material. I was created to kill Son Goku, but there's little point to that now. Maybe I just wanted to have fun, and the greatest fun is to see people's faces contorted in terror. We see that Trunks does exactly that. What? Yeah, just like that. Ha ha ha, says Cell, and then he goes and he flies away. Now, this is very reminiscent of Android 17 and 18, because what do we see right here in the future Trunks flashback when they are destroying the city? Enough 17, there aren't many more humans left. Let's go somewhere else. There must be a lot of them hiding up north. What does 17 say? Let's take our time. The fun will be over if we exterminate them all at once. And so 17 wants to drag things out. He said basically the same thing here after they defeated the Z fighters near the start of the arc when they went to fight against them and destroy them at Dr. Jiro's laboratory. Krillin says, wait, hold on. What exactly is it you want? Is it to kill Goku or take over the world? Again, kind of echoing what Trunks is later on. In 17, for now, we just want to beat Son Goku. We'll think about what to do next when we get there. But why? Why go after him? Dr. Jiro is the one who said you wanted to, you hated him, and killed him. Jiro has nothing to do with it. This is just a game. Son Goku's the strongest being in the world, right? and they want to actually spend time finding him for themselves. That's part of the game, and they want to have fun. It's probably the main reason why they allowed Gohan and Trunks to survive for so long, because they wanted to stretch out this game. They wanted to have fun by not only terrorizing the people of the Earth when they could have just blown up the Earth or killed all of them in an instant if they really wanted to, but instead they wanted to have fun, and they kept the people alive that would be a threat to them, exactly like Cell does here with Trunks and the others, to give them a chance to fight him in this tournament that he's creating instead of just blowing up the Earth, which he could have done at any moment. So again, another kind of carryover from Android 17. And talking about another carryover from 17, during the fight between Goku and Cell, what ends up happening? Goku's blasting at Cell with this different, he's using Vegeta's technique. And then as a result, what ends up happening? Cell uses a barrier, a force field, in order to fend this attack off and stop Goku right in his tracks. Now, where did he get this from? Well, Android 17, of course. Because as we saw during the fight between 17 and Piccolo, Piccolo's right about to kill 17, or at least gravely injure him with this Hellzone grenade that he was using. He unleashed it right upon 17, and what ended up happening? 17 used a force field in order to survive. Again, the exact same one that we see Cell here, even in the exact same pose, using to stop Goku's attack right here. So again, another carryover. And leading into perhaps the biggest carryover and the biggest mistake that Cell made simultaneously, what do we have right here? Well, 17 initially killed Dr. Gero, just like he did in the other timelines. And how did he kill him? Well, not only did he kick his head off, but when his head was on the ground cursing 17 with his very last breath, if he even breathes in this robot body, lousy pieces of junk, 17 comes down, stomps his head, crushes it into oblivion, as we could see here. The only real things left over that we could see are a little bit of brains and one of Gero's eyeballs. I'm sure it was at least 2020. But what ends up happening with Cell? Well, right before Gohan has his iconic moment of becoming a Super Saiyan 2, what ends up happening with Cell? Where is that panel? Well, we see that Android 16's head is rolled over to where Gohan is and begins to tell him how to basically let go of holding back against Cell, to let his energy forth in order for him to be able to protect the nature and the world that 16 loved. And what ends up happening? Cell kills 16 by smashing his head with his foot, exactly the same way that Android 17 killed 16's creator, his father, and the father of the original Android 16, according to Toriyama's interviews, as we see even more in Dragon Ball Super Superhero. And it's a kind of a cruel twist of fate here, and not the one that Jeff Hardy did, but rather the one that, Android 16 completely taken out of the equation permanently after this storyline, and, Dr. Gero went out the same way. It was really ironic, like father, like son. So with all of that being said, what effect did Android 1718 really have on Cell? Well, other than propelling him toward his new construction of his perfect form, his new constitution as it were, he also seemed to have other changes inside of him, perhaps on a mental level, from 17 and 18. He got their techniques, he got their power, their speed, but also he seemed to be influenced on a deeper level psychologically, as not only did he incorporate more of the previous villains in the story into himself, but also he was able to seemingly channel them at different points when he was fighting against his enemies at the time, who were our protagonists. So all of that really comes together to show that they all had some sort of effect on Cell overall. But what do you guys think? Let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments. If you like this video, make sure to like it, and also share the video out, and make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
And you better subscribe!